Coming up, for the third time in 5 days, North Korea launches missiles, coming just hours after U.S. Vice President Harris's visit to the DMZ on Thursday. And as South Korea, the U.S. and Japan hold a trilateral military exercise in the East Sea. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris stresses the importance of peace while at the DMZ. She also spends time with female leaders of South Korea as she underscores gender equality. And the Kremlin says President Putin is ready to sign a decree annexing the 4 occupied regions of Ukraine. The international community fires back with additional sanctions. Good morning. Welcome to New Day at Arirang. Just hours after U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris visited the demilitarized zone separating the two Koreas, North Korea launched missiles once again on Thursday evening. The provocation comes as naval forces from South Korea, U.S. and Japan hold a trilateral military exercise in the East Sea on Friday. Our national defense correspondent Gyeonggi starts us off.
For the third time in just 5 days, North Korea fired missiles once again toward waters east of the Korean peninsula. The launch follows the firing of 2 short-range ballistic missiles a day earlier and one on Sunday. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said Thursday evening that it detected 2 short-range ballistic missiles between 8:48 p.m. and 8:57 p.m., launched from the Suncheon region in South Pyongyang province. The military said the missiles flew around 350 kilometers at an altitude of some 50 kilometers, at 5 times the speed of sound. The missiles were reportedly fired from a transporter erector launcher and hit an uninhabited island called Air Island, just like the ones fired on Wednesday. Following the launch, South Korea's National Security Council held an emergency meeting and stressed that the recent situation regarding the series of ballistic missile launches is serious. It vowed to strengthen combined defense readiness with the U.S., while being ready for any additional launches, such as the regime's submarine-launched missiles. The latest action from Pyongyang came a day ahead of a trilateral anti-submarine warfare exercise between South Korea, U.S., and Japan in the East Sea that's been planned to better detect and counter North Korean submarines. It also came as Seoul and Washington wrapped up their 4-day bilateral drill on Thursday, involving a U.S. nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the USS Ronald Reagan. Thursday's move appears to have been carried out in protest against these military drills, and also against the U.S. Vice President's visit to Seoul. Gyeonggi-do, Arirang News.
The U.S. Vice President wrapped up her trip to South Korea by visiting the DMZ. There, she reaffirms Seoul and Washington's strong alliance against the threats from the regime. Kamala Harris also met with female Korean leaders in a move to promote gender equality. Kim Da-mi has the full story.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris slammed North Korea for the regime's brutal dictatorship, stressing that Washington and the world are pursuing a peaceful Korean peninsula where the North is no longer a threat. Making her first visit to the demilitarized zone separating the two Koreas on Thursday, Harris reaffirmed the U.S. unwavering security commitment to South Korea.
In the North, we see a brutal dictatorship, rampant human rights violations, and an unlawful weapons program that threatens peace and stability.
While encouraging American soldiers at Camp Boniface, Harris stressed that Seoul and Washington are prepared for any contingency. Her visit to the heavily armed area is a first from a high-ranking official from the Biden administration and also comes on the heels of the North's latest missile launches. Promoting gender equality, a key agenda of the Biden administration, also topped Harris's visit to South Korea. The vice president presided the so-called groundbreaking Women Roundtable, inviting Korean female leaders in various fields, including Academy Award-winning actress Yoon Ya-jung and Olympic gold medalist figure skater Kim Yeon-ah.
I therefore believe that if we want to strengthen democracy, we must pay attention to gender equity and do the good and important work of lifting up the status of women in every way, socially, economically, and safety.
The White House had previously pointed out the number of female high-ranking officials in Korea is much lower than those in other developed countries. Thursday's meeting marked the third time that a high-ranking official from the Biden administration met with female leaders in South Korea, followed by the ones with Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. 김다미, Arirang News.
The Democratic Party pushed through passing a motion calling for the dismissal of Foreign Minister Pak Jin. The People Power Party sees the motion, which lacks legally binding force, as an apparent move to pressure the government and the ruling bloc. Our Lee Young-eun has the latest.
Despite strong opposition from the ruling People Power Party, the Democratic Party, which holds a supermajority in parliament, pushed through a motion calling for the dismissal of Foreign Minister Pak Jin. Though not legally binding, the DP proposed and passed a motion to keep the Yoon government accountable for President Yoon's overseas trip, which they call a diplomatic fiasco.
The proposal to dismiss Foreign Minister Pak Jin is a stern order of the people.
Part of the DP's attack was centered around President Yoon's so-called hot mic remarks in New York. But the PPP has been denying the validity of DP's criticism, saying the remarks were, quote, manipulated by local television network MBC, who subtitled them without verification.
There's not a single event that meets the requirements to call for the dismissal of Foreign Minister Pak.
The motion was passed on the day of U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris's visit to Seoul. Upon the PPP's request, the vote was postponed to the evening at 6 p.m. when Foreign Minister Pak Jin was done with the schedule for the day. Shortly after the passage, the FN released a statement saying that he will do his best in the role and will continue pursuing diplomacy for the nation's interests and its people. Now the decision is down to the president himself to decide. Earlier in the day, President Yoon expressed faith in Park as foreign minister.
박진 외교부 장관은 탁월한 능력을 가진 분이고 지금 건강이 걱정이 될 정도로 국익을 위해서 전 세계로 동분서주하는 분입니다. 어떤 것이 옳고 그른지는 국민들께서 자명하게 아시리라고 생각합니다.
So far, there have been 3 cases where dismissals of ministers have passed the National Assembly. 2 of them voluntarily stepped down. 1 remained in post. Lee Young-eun, Arirang News.
Now, about the war in Ukraine, the Kremlin says that President Vladimir Putin plans on Friday to sign a decree annexing 4 occupied regions of Ukraine, following referendums carried out earlier this week. However, the results have widely been dismissed by the international community as fake. Kim Yo-sun has the latest.
It's widely expected that Russia will announce on Friday the annexation of 4 Moscow-controlled regions of Ukraine, representing around 15% of Ukraine's total territory.
Tomorrow, a ceremony to sign the agreements on the accession of new territories into the Russian Federation will take place in the Grand Kremlin Palace in St. George's Hall.
President Vladimir Putin will be presiding over the ceremony and is expected to give a major speech and meet with Moscow-appointed administrators of the Ukrainian regions. This comes as Ukraine and the West have strongly rejected the hastily arranged referendums in the Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia regions, held 7 months after Russia sent troops into Ukraine as, quote, illegitimate shams. Voting ultimately returned a result in favor of incorporating the areas into Russia.
The United States will never recognize Russia's claims on Ukraine's sovereign territory. This so-called referendum was a sham, an absolute sham. The results were manufactured in Moscow.
Biden also explained that Washington is working with allies on imposing new sanctions once Russia annexes areas of Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stressed that Moscow will not get the territories.
Russia will not get any new territory from Ukraine. Russia will only join the disaster it has brought to the occupied territory of our country.
He also stressed that Russia could avoid the most damaging consequences of its war against Ukraine, but to do so, he explained that President Putin had to be stopped. This comes as the EU announced new sanctions against Moscow, with Finland announcing that it will ban Russian citizens traveling with tourist visas from entering the country. The decision comes on the heels of an increasingly heated debate in the EU on whether Russian citizens should not be permitted to apply for visas or banned from entering the bloc altogether. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
The bus drivers union in Gyeonggi-do Province has withdrawn its strike, which was scheduled to start on Friday as negotiations with bus operators successfully ended in the early hours of this morning. A little before 5 a.m., the operators agreed to increase bus drivers' wages by 5% and to improve the working environment. The shift schedule will be arranged 14 days in advance and drivers will get extra pay for working on holidays. Originally, the union asked for a much higher wage increase, but struck a deal at 5% as the province's governor, Kim Dong-yeon, visited the negotiation site and promised to make all bus routes semi-public, financially supported by the local government. Most bus routes in the province are operating as usual on Friday. A bus worker strike in the province would have caused chaos during rush hour, with many from there commuting to Seoul for work. With South Korea completely scrapping the outdoor mask mandate this week, festivals are at full bloom. And there's one thing that's being held in Andong City, introducing Korean traditional dance, Talchum. Our Song Yoo-jin went to Andong herself to take a look.
Talchum, meaning mask dance in Korean, it's a stage play where performers wear masks and incorporate dancing and dialogue into their act. It dates all the way back to primitive times when people danced wearing animal-shaped masks for a successful hunt. And the best place to enjoy Talchum is Andong City in Gyeonggi-do Province, known as South Korea's Roofless Museum with numerous cultural heritages. To preserve and promote Talchum, the city has been holding the Andong Mask Dance Festival since 1997. It's back again from Thursday after a 2-year hiatus due to the pandemic. The event has a lot to offer besides Talchum performances.
And you can enjoy like some flea market or like some displays or like a very interesting places to enjoy. For example, like you can learn how to make the mask, or like you can learn how to play the mask dance.
There's also a metaverse zone where users can play games and see the Hawetal, a wooden mask of the Andong Hawe village. The World Mask Play competition is held with the aim of discovering fresh talent around the world. But the big fun starts after the sun goes down.
I'm out in downtown Andong joining the Daedong parade. People here are doing their own version of Talchum with some great music. And this year, to give Talchum a modern twist, there is an Indian party where visitors can combine the two.
Popular Korean artists, including singer and comedian Bang Myung-soo, also came. Festival goers were mesmerized by Talchum's traditional but trendy charm.
I visited here with my dad 10 years ago, so it brings me back old memories. I think EDM will help Talchum become more widely known among younger people.
Before, I don't know what's the mass is all about. So when I went here like a couple of years ago, I know what's the meaning of, there's different kind of meaning of mask.
The 5-day event runs across the city until Monday. Interpretation services are provided for non-Korean speakers. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News, Andong.
Busan is the second largest city in South Korea and is a port city that attracts a lot of tourists, especially during summertime. But the city has a lot to offer in fall as well, and as temperatures cool down in South Korea, we're here to discuss all the city has to offer. Joining us, we have Chung Bong-gi, the president of Korea Discovery Tour, with us this morning. Good morning.
Morning.
First, could you share with us what are some of the options in terms of activities for visitors during the fall season in Busan?
Actually, the weather in autumn is very nice. It's not very cold. It's not very hot. So it's a great time to walk. So I will introduce Gyeonggi-do Park. This is one of the favorites, coastal walk in Busan for me. So it's 4.6 kilometers from Oryukdo Skywalk to Dongsaeng-mal. So while walking, you can see the cliff and ocean, and at the same time, you can see the high-rise building of Busan. So it's a really nice walk, and you can walk further to Gwangalli Beach, and it leads to the Dongbaek-sum, the Camellia Island, and Haeundae Beach, which is the best coastal walk in Busan. And another one is a Burmosa Temple. Burmosa was established in 678 years, which is very historic place. And at the same time, you can see the maple trees around and the ginkgo trees, including the 600 years old giant ginkgo tree, which is pretty nice. So these two places are the best places in Busan to visit in autumn. And also, of course, we have BIFF, Busan International Film Festival, which starts from 5th of October to 14th of October. And we have a fireworks festival as well on 5th of November.
Right. So in terms of Busan Film Festival, we have a special coverage after the show for about that with experts. So if you're interested, you can always stay tuned with us. But now let's talk about the food. Busan is also known for its food. What food is in season at this time of the year in Busan?
The food, Busan has a lot to offer about the food. But in autumn, Busan is also famous for the seafood, as you know. But generally in Busan, the seafood is very nice in autumn because the water temperature goes down. So all the seafood, the fish and the shellfish and octopus taste very nice. So I recommend you to go to visit Jagalchi Fish Market, and you can try the flounder, rockfish, and sea bass, and also different types of shellfish. And you can try the live octopus and the eel as well. You can experience the authentic Busan food there. And not only the seafood market, the Jagalchi Fish Market, but also we have a shellfish grill. We have in the coastal area, we have many women divers. So they prepare different types of shellfish, and you can have a grill in front of you on the table, and you can bake the shellfish, different types. And you can feel the authentic Busan autumn night. And also, if you don't like the seafood, we also have a night market, Bupyeong Night Market, that every day open from 7:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. So if you walk around the night market, we have all the food stalls laid down in the middle of the market, and you can try many different food during the nighttime. That will be a very good experience for you.
Right. Well, before you go, you're in the front lines of introducing Busan to foreigners. And in about a year, a decision will be made on whether Busan will host the 2030 World Expo. And that will run through October 2030 as well if Busan wins it. So what is it about Busan that you would like to personally appeal to the judges to help them make the decision?
Well, I personally want to appeal about the infrastructure in Busan. We have everything is ready for the Expo 2030 World Expo. We have a fast train that arrived right in front of the Expo venue. And also we will have a fairly new airports just in time for the Expo. And we have a cruise ship terminal, and we have a international passenger terminal as well. And also we have a huge place after we got rid of all the container ports right in front of the sea. So we have everything's ready as well. And also I want to appeal the safety of Korea, the Busan city. The Busan and Korea is a very safe country, and with a very low climate criminal rates, so crime rates. So when the visitors or the tourists come to visit Busan, you don't really have to worry about the safety.
Right.
I think this is essential to have a big kind of event.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, the city is ready for it. Well, thank you again for joining us this morning, and hope you have a great day.
Okay, thank you for having me here.
For a look at the news from around the world, we now turn to our Matthew Ashley, standing by at the Arirang newsroom. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Do-young.
Now let's start in Florida, which has been hit hard by Hurricane Nian.
Well, that's right. At least 17 people are reported dead, and many are unaccounted for after the hurricane battered Florida with powerful winds, rains and storm surges starting Wednesday local time. Now, the combination saw homes flooded, roads cut off, and over 2.6 million Floridians without power. As of Thursday, rescue teams have been working to save thousands of people trapped in their homes. Airports are to remain closed until Friday, and some areas are working to distribute food and water. Hurricane Ian is now South Carolina bound after recharging over the Atlantic Ocean. It initially weakened to a tropical storm while moving across Florida, but has since intensified again to a Category 1 hurricane. A hurricane warning has been issued for the entire coast of South Carolina. Now, workers downed tools and took to the streets of France on Thursday as several unions called for a nationwide strike. They're calling for higher pay amid rising prices. The trade unions included school teachers, train and bus drivers, and those working in the nuclear industry. The strike led to disruptions to schools, the transport sector, and even saw a drop in nuclear energy production. It is the first major strike since French President Emmanuel Macron won re-election in April. Unions have also called for the scrapping of a reform planned by the President Macron to raise the legal retirement age from 62 years old to 65. Now, Myanmar's deposed leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been sentenced to another 3 years in prison. A military court found her guilty of violating the country's Official Secrets Act in a ruling made behind closed doors on Thursday. She already faces 20 years in prison over a series of cases, with more trials still to come. The former elected leader has had multiple charges thrown at her by the ruling generals since being overthrown in a military coup in February 2021. Now, at the same time, Suu Kyi's former economic advisor, Australian Sean Turnell, was also sentenced to 3 years on these same charges. Australia's foreign ministry has rejected the ruling, calling for Turnell's release. So far, details of their alleged violations remain unknown. And finally, a car driven by James Bond in the most recent 007 flick has gone under the hammer for $3 million. Now sold on Wednesday at an auction held by Christie's, the Aston Martin DB5 replica stunt car appeared in No Time to Die. One of the only 2 such cars in the world, it comes complete with imitation machine guns built into its headlights. The car is just one of 35 James Bond-themed lots up for sale, which include other cars, accessories and costumes from the 60-year-old franchise. Now, the auction is set to continue until October 5th, which is James Bond Day. The proceeds will be donated to charity.
Narrow scrape, wasn't it? I thought they were going to...
Good morning. It looks to be a repeat of yesterday's weather conditions in the capital region, unfortunately, because that means we'll have more dust choking us. High levels of ultrafine dust is forecast to cover west of central regions all day, while the west coast and inland regions are having a foggy start. Fall brings a change in temperatures that can fluctuate so much in one day. Many will agree that it feels like we're going through 2 seasons in just a few hours, and it seems like we're going to have wider temperature differences, so please dress accordingly. Sunny skies in store nationwide with strong UV rays, and Daegu and Gwangju will be going up to 29 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Now, the last day of September will wrap up on a warmer note. Rain on Monday, which is National Foundation Day in Korea, continues through Tuesday. Then things will become much chillier when we come back from that 3-day weekend. With that, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
And that wraps up today's New Day at Arirang. We'll be back next week after a long weekend on Tuesday. Please stay with Arirang News, though, for more updates throughout the day. Have a lovely day or evening wherever you are, and take care.
망가져요? 구겨져요? 신발 날아가요? 요리 튕겨요?